So good morning, everyone. After the long break, after your internals, we are back with our subject related to mechanical measurements and metrology. So before the internals, we were dealing about the last module related to the measurements, load cells, all those stuff. So we dealt about different types of load cells, also pneumatic load cell, piezoelectric, strain gauge load cells, right? So further, we need to start up with the other instruments which are related to the measurements. So I kindly share my screen, just a second. Is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, fine. So hope you remember we were dealing, the first part of the fifth module was covered. So then we started studying about different options in order to weigh measurements. So we started right from introduction to the force, the measurements related to it. So which type of instruments we have, equal arm balance, unequal arm balance, right? So these two categories we dealt. After this, we went for multi-lever platform scale, so which is useful to measure large amount of weight, huge weights. So we dealt this, and we also studied about the spring gauge. What do you mean by load cell? Okay, so the type of load cells with respect to the strain gauge we studied, and also we studied about the hydraulic load cell and as well as pneumatic load cell. So after this, there is another instrument which is being used called as a proving ring. So why these instruments are being used? So main application of using this proving ring is to get the accurate measurements for the static loads. It is not any static load. For the large amount of static load which has to be measured, for that this proving ring is very helpful. So how does this proving ring looks like? So proving ring is a circular ring of rectangular cross section. So I can see it is a circular ring. So how does it looks exactly? Okay. So it is a circular ring of rectangular cross section which may be subjected to either tensile or compressive force. So it could be subjected to both the type of force, either tensile or the compressive force. Across the diameter only the load has to be subjected. So the force deflection relation for a thin ring. So when a force is being applied, so the deflection which come across the thin ring will be derived, will be obtained by this theoretical equation. So where F is equal to 16 upon pi by 2 minus 4 by pi into EI upon D cube into Y. So what are these? The derivation you don't have. So if they ask you to mention the force equation which has been followed, right? So then you have to just write the equation and tell the parameters what are. So here F is the force what we measure. E, everyone you know, E is the Young's modulus. So I will be the moment of inertia of the section about the centroidal axis, and D will be the outside diameter of the ring, and Y will be the amount of deflection which has been caused due to the applied load. So this will be the equation which will be used in order to determine the force which has been subjected into a thin ring of rectangular cross section. So basically, one more thing what you have to understand is this theory or this equation was being derived under the concept of, or the assumption what it was assumed is, the thickness of the ring is small compared to the radius. So the radius, suppose always the thickness of the ring which will become which will be there will be comparatively lesser than that of the radius of the ring. And also it is clear that the displacement is directly proportional to the force. So these are the two assumptions. So displacement, how much you get, will be directly proportional to the force applied. So that is one assumption. And the second assumption is the thickness of the ring will be comparatively smaller than the diameter of the proving ring. So the deflection is always small what you get, and hence the usefulness of the proving ring as a calibration device mainly depends upon the accuracy with which the small deflection is measured. So this ring is basically useful to get a very accurate value for very small amount of deflection. That shows that it can sense accurately even a very small amount of deflection which comes into the picture. And also other thing what you have to understand is, in order to obtain precise measurements, what one has to do, you have to make one edge of the micrometer to be mounted on a vibrating reed device which is plugged to obtain a vibratory motion. Okay, so here you can see this is a vibratory rod and this will be the micrometer wheel, and so this will be the proving ring. Okay, so this will be the force in which direction the force will be applied. So the vibration which has been induced will be measured by using the micrometer wheel. So you can apply the force from both the direction. It is not only from the top or the bottom. So you can apply from both the directions. So when it is being applied and you have a dial indicator which measures, you will be having a read here. So when the force is applied, so it could come down and it will be sensed and the reading will be shown in the micrometer screw. And there will be a screw nut arrangement which could be loosened and clamped to get the required fit between these two. Okay, so the micrometer contact is then moved forward until a noticeable damping of the vibration is observed. So we use this screw nut arrangement until the required adjustment has to be done, because it has to sense the vibratory motion. Okay, so the proving rings are normally used for only measurement of force within the given range. So what is the range which has been given? It is from 1.5 kilonewton to 1.5 meganewton. Okay, so this is the amount of force which could be measured by using the proving ring. And one more theoretical concept related to this is, the maximum deflection is typically of the order of 1% of the outside diameter. So how much deflection you get is typically 1% of the outside diameter of the ring. You will be having the inside and the outside diameter. So based on the outside diameter, it will be just the 1% of it. And also the deflection what you get from the proving ring could be directly measured by LVDT, okay, linear variable diffusible transducer. Okay, so this how it could be measured. We can come across our linear variable differential transducer concepts. So main thing what you have to understand is, proving ring is mainly used to measure static loads. So you get static characteristics. Apart from that, what you have to keep in mind is, it is always associated with large value of static loads. So you can evaluate the static characteristics for the large amount of weight which is being induced in a given material. So when the force is applied, deflection usually comes into picture. So the amounts of force deflection relation is being obtained by this theoretical equation. And two assumptions are done. One is the assumption that the thickness of the ring is comparatively smaller than that of the radius. And the second one is the displacement will be directly proportional to the force. So those two you can keep it in mind. And this is the range within which you can measure the force. And the fourth important factor is, the maximum deflection will be typically of the order 1% of the outside diameter of the ring. So these are the basic concepts you have to keep in mind when you come across the instrument proving ring. So proving ring is an instrument used majorly to measure high range of weights. So how much amount of deflection is being induced in this proving ring can be easily measured by using our LVDT. So which is nothing but linear variable differential transducer load cell. So even this is a type of an load cell which works in the function of a transducer. And you know how an transducer works. So it will be having three stages which sense the physical parameter as an input, and it modifies or processes and converts into the required output signal what an operator needs basically, which is recordable. So that is the main application of an transducer. So here LVDT what we are using is a typical type of force transducer, because here we are using this transducer to identify the deflection orientation in a body, so how it could be measured. Okay, so what happens in the case of LVDT? It is mainly used to convert the linear displacement into an electrical signal. So the deflection which has been induced in probing ring could be easily measured by using LVDT. Why? Because it can convert the linear amount of displacement into an output signal which is as an electrical signal. Okay, so it is used to measure force. It could be either in the form of weight, pressure, yeah, acceleration. So all three physical quantities could be sensed and it could be deflected into the required electrical signal. So what does this LVDT consist of? LVDT consists of three coils wound on a single magnetic tube. Okay, so you'll be having a magnetic tube. Okay, so on which you will be having the three coils. So what are these three coils? So can you notice in the diagram what all coils you have? So here it is being shown as S1, S2, right? Here it has been shown as E1, E2, and these are non-magnetic tubes, right? So you'll be having an armature core here, so which will be connected to a particular lot. So this shows the displacement, the to and fro motion when the force has been applied. So here you'll be having an elastic diaphragm which can move. When the force is applied, this diaphragm will move with respect to the amount of force applied, and hence the amount of displacement induced here will be measured by our primary and the secondary winding coils. Okay, we'll go into that in depth little bit later. Apart from that, we have an AC supply to the primary winding. Then we have an armature core, which is a ferromagnetic material. So it acts as a ferromagnetic material attached to free moving. So with respect to this magnetic field, you will be having an free moving. Along with that, you have a movable core couple with primary transducers. Okay, so movable core couples you have with primary transducer. Why is primary transducer is needed? Because it has to sense the physical quantities such as weight, pressure, and acceleration. So you'll be using primary elements of the transducer as a first stage of a transducer. So which are the example for it? We have studied already the spring gauge, the bellows, the diaphragm in the beginning of our transducers also. So these are the three categories of primary transducer elements which will be used. So you'll be having an armature core which behaves like a magnetic material, and these are the secondary coils, so which has been embedded by non-magnetic tubes. So these hatched lines are non-magnetic tubes within which you have the secondary winding. These two are secondary winding and this is the primary winding. Okay, so the voltage, amount of voltage induced at E1 and E2 will be shown over here. Due to the movement of the displacement with respect to the applied force, the displacement will be converted into the electrical signal by the intervention of an magnetic field here. So this acts as a primary transducer which sends the physical quantity and converts into the required electrical signal in the form of voltage. So this will be the voltage induced at secondary winding and voltage induced at this secondary winding 1 and 2. The main application plays a vital role depending upon which type of elastic diaphragm material you are using. So based on the force applied, the amount of diaphragm will move to and fro. Due to that, the displacement will be induced with respect to the armature plays as an elemental transducer for stage 1, and it converts it into the required output signal. So AC current supply, we told we need it in order to start. Okay, so AC current supply is provided to the primary winding. The magnetic flux generated by the coil will be distributed to the armature. So when an AC current supply is sent to the primary winding, primary PW is nothing but our primary winding. So due to the armature, a magnetic flux will be generated in this primary coil. So this magnetic flux generated will be converted into the voltage in our secondary winding. So the difference among when core is placed exactly at the center, core is nothing but the armature core. When the core is exactly present at the center, what happens? The voltage induced at the secondary coil and the voltage induced at the primary coil will be the same. So if you take the difference of those two, that will be equal to null or zero. So this position is called as a null position of the armature, or you can tell that the given LVDT is in equilibrium condition or in balanced condition. So it depends upon how you align the armature core, exactly center or anything towards your right or left, then you can't get a null position. So E2 voltage will be increased and E1 voltage will decrease. Then what happens if you move the armature towards the left? The voltage induced at E2 will be more than that of the voltage induced at 1. As a result, the net voltage available at the output will be the difference between the voltage induced by secondary coil minus the voltage induced by the primary coil. And if suppose the armature moves towards your right, what happens? The voltage induced at primary coil will increase and the voltage induced at secondary coil will decrease. In this case also, the net voltage available at the output will be equal to E1 minus E2. So it mainly depends upon how the armature is kept in the instrument, whether it is centrally located, whether it is located towards your left, or whether it is located towards your right. So based on this, you will get the output voltage V naught. Okay. So this concept you have to understand. So one thing, if they ask you the concept of proving ring, you have to explain why it is being used, okay, how it functions, and the amount of deflection will be measured by LVDT. So how the deflection will be measured, you can draw a sketch and explain it. So after you know the working of LVDT, you should also understand what are its advantages and disadvantages. So these are associated with the advantages of LVDT. So the first advantage is it is able to achieve the linear displacement right from 0.05 percentage, okay, available in commercial LVDT. So if we go with the commercial LVDT type, this instrument is even able to sense and measure the linearity deflection at 0.05%. And it is very highly sensitive. It can sense and get the output signal 40 volt per mm also. That shows how sensitive the LVDT instrument is. And it is also an high voltage output measuring instrument. You can measure the maximum high voltage induced due to the maximum amount of force applied on an instrument. So it can measure both the least deflection as well as the highest deflection. And if it is sensing the highest deflection, obviously it will deliver you the high amount of output signal, which is nothing but high voltage signal. And one more thing what you have to understand is it is associated with less amount of friction. The amount of friction what you arise while measuring the displacement into the voltage signal is very low. And also is hysteresis nature. It has a very low hysteresis nature and repeatability part is excellent. So if you measure the same instrument, the linear deflection into the output voltage around 5 or 10 times also, it will provide you the same value. That shows that repeatability of the values by using LVDT is very excellent. That shows that the instrument is maintained well and calibrated well. Then only the repeatability value of it will be the maximum. One more advantage of LVDT is it consumes very low amount of power. 1 watt is enough, okay, for the starting of LVDT, and as this is also one of its application. And the last one is the LVDT instrument is very simple, it is light in weight, it is easy to align, and it is easy for maintaining also. So it has a set of advantages why you can use LVDT to measure large amount of deflection into the required voltage. Okay, so apart from that, it has some disadvantages also. So what are those? So relatively large displacement required for appreciable differential output. So what do you mean by this? Relatively large displacement is required to get an appreciable differential output. The output signal, if you get the voltage in very low value, then it will be of not so much in use. So in order to get a high range of electrical signal as an voltage, it is always very necessary to have a very large amount of displacement. To get a very large amount of displacement, very large amount of load has to be applied as a form of force. This is one of the disadvantage, even though the equipment is very good in sensing very small amount of deflection. Also, to get high amount of output signal, you need large displacement, as the load induced and the displacement obtained is directly proportional. So this is one of the disadvantage. Second is temperature affects the performance. Means if you're measuring an LVDT, if you're using an LVDT instrument to measure the output signal, the external environment also plays a vital role. If the temperature, the climate could be too low, yeah, medium, yeah, high. So based on the room temperature, it affects the performance or the results of the measuring values. And last one is, it is not suitable for dynamic measurements. I told you in the beginning only, probing ring is being used to measure the static characteristics for large amount of load. Since it has been used for static characteristics, it is not suitable for measuring dynamic measurements. Dynamic measurements are the one which change with respect to the time. Static measurements are the one which doesn't change with respect to the time. So this is the next part, what you have to understand related to disadvantages of LVDT. So this provides an entire picture of why LVDT is being used and how the probing ring output could be converted into the required output signal. Because I told you in the beginning, transducers have many applications. It has 3 stages. So the probing ring output now is directly connected to the LVDT. So the output is connected to a measuring device which provides an measuring value for the operator, which is in readable form. So this is how one instrument could be embedded with the other and get the required output signal. Because only by using probing ring, you cannot measure the voltage signal as an output. So in order to get the voltage signal, right, you have to use the displacement value, the deflection value obtained by probing ring, and then get the required output signal in the form of voltage. So in this case, it has been done by using LVDT load cell, which is nothing but our linear variable differential transducer. So then next you should know, what do you mean by torque measurements? So what do you understand by torque? Everyone knows what do you mean by force, what do you mean by torque, what do you mean by pressure, what do you mean by power. So in the 5th module, we are just measuring all these values using some instruments, right? So we covered about force measurements, how force could be measured by using different instruments. So the force could be converted into the deflection, but deflection itself will not end up with as an output signal. So we need some terminatory device, like LVDT is one of the terminatory device, which is a 3rd stage elemental transducer, which helps in converting into the required output signal. So in this way, the deflection was converted into the output signal. In between, we'll be having a modifier which do the processing such that the deflection could be converted into the output voltage. Similarly, now you have to understand which are the instruments being used in order to measure the torque. For that, we should be knowing what do you mean by a torque. So what do you mean by a torque exactly? The force in addition to affect its along its line of action. So when the force has been applied, so what happens, the effect which has been induced along its line of action will be having a rotating effect or the turning effect across the axis. Okay, so that is to explain to be as an torque or an couple. So due to the force induced, due to the force applied, a turning effect will be induced in the material. So that turning effect will be called to be as our torque or couple. So you can tell either torque or couple. So here you can see an here you can just see an diagram, right? So we have the force applied in one upward direction and in the downward direction. So it provides us a rotating effect or a turning effect. Why? So here you can see F into B1, F, the force which is acting in the downward, and the distance here with which it is from the reference datum plane. So F into B1 minus of F into B3 will provide us the force induced with respect to this distance B2. So this will provide an balancing value for the turning couple. So F into B1 minus F into B3 will provide F into B2. So this is nothing but our torque or couple. So when the force has been applied, due to the applied force, if you got an rotation or a turning effect which acts in the form of an couple, then you call that to be as a torque or the couple. So what are the important aspects you have to understand in torque measurement? So the important reason for measuring torque is to obtain the load information necessary for stress or deflection analysis. What do you understand from this? The main reason why we need to measure the torque is to obtain the all information about the load which is responsible for the stress or the deflection within the body. You know, when the load is being applied, the stress will be induced in the body or deflection will occur. So you have to measure then the value of torque in order to get this deflection analysis, and hence the torque can be computed by an equation which is equal to F into R. So where F will be the force and R will be the radius from which it is being rotated. Okay, so the torque will be equal to force into the radial distance. So here the same thing, force into the radial. So this is the force which is acting down. So this will be the radial distance. And similarly for F, so this will be the radial distance B2. So if you consider with respect to reference datum plane O, then the force which has been acting to get the rotating effect, you should be having the radial distance as FB3. And also you should understand one thing. The torque measurement is always often associated with determining amount of mechanical power, either power required to operate a machine or power developed by a machine. So usually why we need torque measurement? It is always useful in order to develop what is the amount of mechanical power induced or developed from a machine. So power calculation is also very essential, and you know the equation of power, which is nothing but 2 pi nt, where n will be the angular speed in revolution per second. So it will be the angular speed of how many revolutions it is rotating per second. And T is a torque value. The torque measuring device used in this connection are commonly known as dynamometers. You have in your syllabus dynamometers also. Why these dynamometers are used? To measure the amount of mechanical power induced in a machine. Okay, so for that you should be knowing this equation 2 pi nt, where n stands for the angular speed. It counts the number of revolution it is rotating per second, and the torque is actually measured using the connections to it. So these measuring devices are called to be as dynamometers. So you have classification of dynamometers, types of dynamometers which are there in order to measure our power, because torque and power both goes hand in hand. So power, you know everyone, power is defined as a rate of doing work, and its amount of work done will help in generating the required amount of power. And it is also equal to the product of force and linearity, or the product of torque and angular velocity. So power could be defined as per the received input data. So it could be either the product of force and the velocity, which is only linear in nature, or it could be the torque value and the angular velocity. So both the parameters will help in providing us the required power. So the measurement of power involves the measurement of torque or the force as well as the speed. So once you measure the power, you will be having both the values of torque and speed with you. So the force or the torque is measured with the equation down below. So here you get the values with the help of an dynamometer. So what is the equation used? Power is equal to 2 pi nt upon 60,000 kilowatt. Okay. So here T is the torque, N is the rotation speed in RPM, and P is the brake power, what you get in terms of kilowatt. So the torque may be measured in terms of reaction force and arm length or angular twist. So in order to measure the torque, you need to get the values of the reactional force and the arm length which is associated to that force, or the angular twist it has been induced in the material due to the applied force. So either you should get force and the arm length distance, or the force and the angular twist. So then only you can measure the torque. Okay. So for that you have an equation which has been balanced here. So which will be T by J is equal to G theta by L, which will be equal to tau by R. So T will be the maximum twisting torque which will be generated in the material due to the applied force, and J will be the polar moment of inertia. G will be the modulus of rigidity. Theta will be the twisting angle, how much it has been twisted due to the applied force. And L will be the length of the shaft, tau will be the shear stress, and R will be the radius. So this is the equation which helps in determining the angular twist, the twisting angle which has been associated with respect to the applied load. This is in general. Okay, so in nature, both the torque and the power could be measured by using dynamometer. So we have different type of classifications of dynamometers. So one is the absorption dynamometer, and second is the Prony-brake dynamometer. In that we have two types. One is block type and another one is band type dynamometer. Then we have rope brake dynamometer, hydraulic dynamometer, eddy current dynamometer. Okay, so after that we have transmission dynamometer. In that you have one classification which is torsion dynamometer, and third category is we have servo controlled dynamometer. So these are the different classifications of dynamometers in general. Let us focus with respect to our syllabus point of view. So in this, basically it deals with three categories. One is absorption dynamometer, second is driving dynamometer, and third is transmission dynamometers. So what happens in case of absorption dynamometer? So in absorption dynamometer, what happens is it absorbs only the mechanical energy as torque is measured, okay, and hence are particularly useful for measuring power or torque. Absorption, by reading the word only you can understand absorption. It is absorbing some physical input data. In this case, it absorbs the mechanical energy as torque is measured. Okay, so that will be useful later to convert into the required power as an output. So this absorption dynamometer, helps in absorbing the mechanical energy. So it helps, this absorbed mechanical energy will be converted into the measured torque in the modifier, and later this will be converted into the output signal as our power. So this happens in case of absorption dynamometer. Next comes the driving dynamometer. What happens in this? These dynamometers mainly measure either the power or the torque, and as well provide energy to operate the devices to be tested. So this, and hence the name only suggests driving dynamometers. So these dynamometers are converting the torque into the power, and it is also helping helping to drive the instruments by using this power. Okay, so hence the name driving. Absorption, it only absorbs and convert into the output, but driving dynamometers absorbs, convert into the output, and it also makes the machine to run or operate, and hence the name driving dynamometers. And hence these are useful in determining various performance characteristics of devices such as pumps, compressors, etc. So in pumps and compressors, the driving dynamometer is being used because it helps in driving or operating the pumps and compressors continuously. So it won't take an outsource of energy to make this run. So it is a device which generates the required power to run the pump automatically through itself, and compressor also. Okay, so this is the difference between absorption dynamometer and driving dynamometer. So the last type of classification is transmission dynamometer. So as you understand with the word transmission, it is able to transmit the output signal. So what happens here exactly? So these are passive devices until now? If it was disconnected, no one told me. Hello. Hello. You people are there?
Yes, ma'am.
No, in between it, I was explaining until now. You people were not able to listen.
No, ma'am.
No, at least one of you would have been informed me, right? Now, after completion of the slide, I just tried to open up. It showed it's not been connected. Until when you people, which was the last slide you people went through? Are you able to see the PPT?
Advantages and
Advan
limitations, ma'am. Advantages and limitations of load cell.
Advantages and disadvantages of prony brake, right? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Prony brake dynamometer.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
until this you have listened. Because after this only I just closed the PPT, but I could not see that you people were there in the meeting. It had been disconnected. So only I called you back. Fine. So hope you people understood the advantages and disadvantages. This limitation part also you were there, right, when I was explaining?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So in the next class, we'll be starting up with a row brake dynamometer. So once we complete with the row brake dynamometer, that will cover the measurement of the torque and the power. So then it comes with the pressure measurements. Okay, so this all we will be dealing in the next class. And if anyone who haven't written your name in the chat room for the attendance, kindly add on. Anyone who haven't written the name and USN number, please. And assignments are due by due dates. See that you people will submit the assignments on time. Some people have submitted and some hasn't. So please take care of the assignments and submit. Your internals are got over now. So kindly do it in time. Anyone else who haven't written your name and USN? Okay, then thank you. Take care. I think you have max class now. It's 9:40. Take care. Bye-bye.